Yes. Okay. All right. This is what happens. Let's take two. Okay. Hello and welcome to the Raptors Reaction Podcast presented by Betway. For all your sports betting activities, hit the QR code you see on the screen or follow the link you see in the description below. My bad for the quiet start here. Just got a little excited after the Raptors win, man. The Raptors win 127-109 over the Phoenix Suns. Suns, this is a very sad team, honestly. I was gonna say they played with like no energy at all. And it was so notable how like little they were interacting. Like the only moments where you actually seen them actually talk to each other in the first half was when KD was like yelling at Nick Richards, being like, "You gotta effing be there. You gotta be effing smarter than that. You gotta be better than that." And he was talking about how RJ Barrett was able to drive in and draw the foul with Richards late to contest, and Richards ended up giving up the foul. And, KD being a nice guy, though, afterwards, dapped him up or whatever. But then the very next play down, Ochai Agbaji drives straight through to the basket. Nick Richards makes no attempt to close out the basket like he's supposed to do, just as KD told him to. And that's kind of like how it went. I think the Suns... their talent ultimately shined through. They made a couple of adjustments over the course of this game. They started playing some more zone. They played a lot more small ball. They play. I mean, like, dude, when your center rotation is the Phoenix, like the Phoenix Suns are paying the highest luxury bill in the league right now. Their owner is going to be paying through the nose for a team that's not even guaranteed to be in the play-in. Right? They're out of the play-in right now, and their center rotation is the Charlotte Hornets center rotation. They got Nick Richards and Mason Plumlee. Like, I don't know what's going on between those two guys. But basically, neither of those guys were contributing whatsoever. And so the Suns decided to go small and close out with, the KD and Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, who was actually quite good in this game, and Grayson Allen and Royce O'Neal. So, that is a concern, at least defensively, because you now have five guys who are spacing it out, and KD, I thought, made a couple of great plays defensively, and I think they got it to at least as close as 2 points. And you're thinking, and for sure I had to stop whilst watching the game, when I'm like, you know what, Raptors, you guys did a great job tonight. You guys played great. Eventually, you have, two Hall of Famers on the other end. Sometimes you just lose it in the end. Like this was a game that the Raptors lost a lot of at the start of the season. And then the Raptors flipped the script. And it was Immanuel Quickley in particular, but it was also Chris Boucher and RJ Barrett. The three of those guys, first with Boucher, then two from IQ, and then three straight from RJ Barrett, and then one final one for good measure from Chris Boucher. 7 straight threes to turn it from a 2-point game into a blowout by the end. I mean, this was crazy. This was a crazy finish by the Raptors. And honestly, a little bit out of nowhere, but 100% deserved, because the Raptors outplayed the Suns like the entire night. And I know that people are going to be concerned about the tank. And, if you want, you could check the Tankathon standings. The Raptors still, I think, are in the 5th spot right now. They're still, I think, 3 games up on 4 and 2 games up on 6. So, no actual movement there. But, like, sometimes you're going to have these games where, especially you're playing at home, and your young guys are into the game, and they're fighting and they're competing, and the Raptors were in the game all night, and they were controlling the game all night, where you're just going to, like, you're going to have to trust the basketball gods. Basketball gods said the Raptors outplayed the Suns all night. And, yeah, the Suns were huffing and puffing, and Devin Booker was pulling up for 3, and Bradley Beal couldn't miss from 3, and KD's KD, but like, yeah, down the stretch, man, the Raptors came out of nowhere and just like knocked the Suns out, like just destroyed them with the 7 straight threes. I actually don't remember another Raptors game where they pulled out 7 straight threes in that stretch there. And yeah, I'm already seeing some of the comments that the Suns defense is atrocious. It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. Whether they play a center or not, the Raptors were able to get downhill all the time. They were able to kill them with pick and roll all the time. I mean, we're playing pick and roll, all due respect, but like the Raptors, like, what else do you want them to do, right? Like, they've already held out Jakob again. So they're playing Orlando Robinson, who's joined the team mid-season. He's on a 2-way contract. He's starting, and the Suns can't even stop Orlando Robinson and RJ Barrett in a pick and roll. Like, they legit had to play zone for like the entire like second half. Like, it is what it is. At a certain point, like, you're just gonna get the dub. And obviously the push at the end there was super fun. Chris Boucher, who is an unsung hero of this team, I'm pretty sure he ends up outplaying Kevin Durant in this game. Obviously, KD gets more defensive attention, whatever. Like, I'm not trying to, Like, I'm not trying to be facetious. Obviously, Kevin Durant's better than Chris Boucher. But tonight, Chris Boucher with 23 points on 9 of 12 shooting, including 4 5 from 3, 2 huge ones down the stretch. Meanwhile, only 15 in 40 minutes for KD on 5 of 15 shooting. Just outrageous. How are you supposed to lose a game if the Raptors are going to have Chris Boucher outplaying Kevin Durant on a night like that? But I think for me, it was just like a great push there at the end by Immanuel Quickley. I think the Raptors sometimes could struggle in terms of like who's going to close the game. I think that you're going to see rotation in terms of like sometimes it'll be Scottie, sometimes it'll be IQ, sometimes it'll be RJ. Like the last game, for example, when the Raptors lost to Miami in overtime. RJ had most of the crunch time scoring opportunities at the end of regulation, but then they give the final play to Scottie. That didn't work out. And then they, just were completely out of sync in overtime and they lost the game. This game, it was IQ who was running the show. And, that was really fun to see. Seeing IQ, being aggressive with the 3 ball. He's been really hot from 3 of late. I've been really liking the shots that he's taking. I like the confidence too, because this wasn't the type of game where IQ was like consistently involved. I thought he had a really strong start to the game, but then faded in the second quarter, was like completely absent in the third quarter, looked frustrated to me at times. And then in the fourth quarter, out of nowhere, started seizing control and knocked down a 3, knocked out another 3, this one from like 30. You could see him like let out a bit of frustration on that sort of 3-2. And then the next 3 straight shots for the Raptors, it was all IQ driving and then kicking to RJ Barrett for 3 straight threes. The third one, RJ hits the 3 despite getting fouled by Devin Booker for a 4-point play. So 3 straight driving assists from IQ. Obviously very impressive shot making from RJ as well, because RJ wasn't exactly on fire from 3. He was actually mostly getting to the basket and living at the foul line for the majority of this game, but he came alive there with those 3 straight threes. And it got to the point where the Suns decided to trap IQ at the top of the floor because they just couldn't contain him. They couldn't contain his drives. They couldn't contain him on the pull-up threes. They had to send a double team at him at the top of the floor like he's Steph Curry. And the last 3, this one for Boucher, the Suns trapped IQ at the top of the floor. IQ makes the pass over the top to RJ. RJ drives the middle of the floor, collapses the defense, kicks it out to Chris Boucher. And the Suns, this is how sad the Suns are. They're not even contesting. They're not even making an effort. Maybe they just know they lost. Maybe they know that this season is like gone to just complete hell. But like nobody even contesting. Like, come on, man. The Raptors just made 6 straight threes. But then Chris Boucher says, thank you very much. Catch and shoot, wide open all day in the corner, knocks down the 3 right in front of his own bench. And instant celebrations right there because the Raptors came out of nowhere. But honestly, like, that fourth quarter push aside, because we know the Raps aren't going to do that all the time. I think they actually played a really, really good game, like all throughout. And I think they deserve sort of like full on credit for just sort of how they got this one done. I think number one for me is like, this is not what happened at the end of the game because, that wasn't, it was about the 3-point shooting. But what kept the Raptors in this game for the longest time was seeing the defense that Scottie Barnes and the rest of the team, but primarily Scottie, played on Kevin Durant. The Raptors obviously came in this game, as most teams do. They circled the matchup and they're like, okay, we're going to play the Suns. We got to make sure we neutralize KD. And that's not to say that KD can't make some contested shots. Certainly he made some pretty tough turnaround jumpers. I mean, he's Kevin Durant. This guy's like, I think he's like 7th in the NBA now in terms of all-time scoring. By the time he's actually done, which if you watched Court of Gold on Netflix, the documentary that's followed around the men's basketball portion of the Olympics, and you get to hear about KD and how much he loves basketball. And at one point he broke down crying just talking about how much he loves the game, which I thought was just so, relatable and poignant from KD. He's going to do this thing until like, I mean, he's already been balding. He's been balding for like 10 years, man. And so like, he's going to keep going, keep doing this. By the time KD's done, like he's probably going to be like guaranteed top 5 all-time scoring. He might even contend for like top 3 all-time scoring. It might legit be LeBron, Kareem, and KD by the time it's all said and done for him. But like, he's gonna make some tough shots. But at the same time, I thought Scottie did a great job competing and fighting with him all night in terms of the physicality that he was providing, the challenges that he was providing. He got help there too. Of course, the Raptors certainly came by and sent help against KD quite often, sometimes doubling to get KD to get off the ball, sometimes doubling early to sort of force KD to pass, sometimes doubling late. Like IQ made a great defensive play in the fourth quarter that gave the Raptors a bit of momentum, which was KD taking Scottie on and then backing him down and trying to go for the turnaround shot. But then all of a sudden, IQ made a late rotation, slid over, and blocked Durant as he was going up for the shot. That forced a loose ball and a steal. Raptors got on the fast break. Actually, the only thing the Raptors didn't do well on this night was just their fast breaks were like really terrible. Like it felt like they just kept fumbling fast breaks. But IQ throws like a kind of a bad bounce pass to Scottie, who wasn't really expecting it in transition. I think the play ultimately ended up with like Jacoby Walter getting fouled under the basket. So it was still like a basket, but a great defensive sequence from IQ to come over to help Scottie, who was doing the majority of the work, but helping Scottie and getting the stop on KD. And it got the Suns so like riled up that Mike Budenholzer legit sprinted onto the court. Like this guy was trying to play transition defense or something, which is so funny to me because I'm not going to lie to you. As much as, Coach Budenholzer has won the championship now with the Milwaukee Bucks, and he has led so many regular season teams to great success in Atlanta and Milwaukee. Obviously, that's not happening here in Phoenix, but, it's not entirely his fault. It wasn't like the previous coaches were doing that much with this current group. But nevertheless, seeing him sprint onto the floor, begging for an ejection. So I didn't even get ejected, which I'm like, dude, if you're going to run onto the floor to the point where you're affecting the play and you're basically the trailer on the fast break, I feel like you should get kicked out. Like, come on, man. Like it's a certain point where it's like, you know what, you're doing this to spark your team. This reminded me of like when Darko did the same thing against Memphis. Now, Darko definitely took it another level beyond what Bud did because Bud calmed down a little bit, but still, yeah, I mean, like the defense against KD was so good that their coach ends up running onto the floor to play transition defense for a team that like refused to actually play transition defense for each other and for their coach. So I thought that was very funny. Raptors made the technical free throws as well. Just all around really, really good stuff. I mean, even when Scottie got a break from the KD assignment, I thought guys like, Jonathan Mobo did a good job there. I thought Chris Boucher provided great help. And just in general, limiting an all-time great to 5 of 15 shooting from the field is the main reason why the Raptors were able to win this game. And yeah, of course, like the Suns, the way they built, like they're going to have other guys who can contribute and chip in, right? Like Devin Booker ends up going for 31. Bradley Beal, who was hot all night. This guy was giving me those like 2015 flashbacks, man. I thought he was about to yell at Kyle Lowry saying, "You can't F with me again." Because, we've been doing a lot of Raptors history this year for the 30th anniversary, and I've been watching all the documentaries and all that kind of stuff. One part of the docs they never talk about is 2015, though. But yeah, I mean, Bradley Beal used to be a Raptor killer in his many years with the Wizards. But like, yeah, 30 points for him on 12 of 15 shooting. He had it going early. He had it going late. All that stuff was good. But if you can neutralize KD, and on the other end too, it's just like, you got to know that the Suns just play with zero energy, man. Like, yes, they have great shot making and stuff, but they're going to be lazy. So you're going to get them on things like, blitzing them for turnovers. The Raptors won the possession battle. The Raptors also getting on the offensive glass a ton. 14 offensive rebounds for the Raptors, only 4 for the Suns. They just don't have the athletes. They just don't have guys with energy to sort of play. Like, their centers, like they were so bad ultimately they took them all off the floor. They don't bring any youth really into the game at any point. It's just like an old team relying on jump shooting. And even on the night when they're hot, like they're hot, like it's not like, obviously KD wasn't really hitting, but like the Suns in general did a really good job of making their jumpers. But the Raptors also did a great job of like at least running them off the 3-point line and forcing them to shoot more in the mid-range. And yeah, I mean, it was just a really good defensive effort all the way around. And having said all that, the Suns still had a chance there because it was a 2-point game with like 5 minutes left. And then the Raptors just like sucker punched them. Like it was actually beautiful to see that. And I think, especially a guy like Chris Boucher kind of like really highlights the difference in the two teams tonight. It's just like Chris always comes in and plays with all out energy. And first half, Chris, I think he only got in, like he was maybe like the 10th guy to get into the game tonight. He was mostly in for the Bull matchup. Like, yo, that's how desperate the Suns are. They're playing Bull is crazy. Like, what are you doing, man? But yeah, like he's in against Bull, and he made a couple of hustle plays there, and he did a really good job of slipping screens and getting to the basket. Again, the Raptors did a really good job of just carving the Suns apart in pick and roll. I think the scouting was really good in this sense of like they know that the Suns are not good defensively. Specifically, they're not good in the pick and roll. They're not good at helping each other, and so there were a lot of opportunities for the Raptors to just get downhill. And that's where I thought RJ set the tone for the offense early on, driving to the basket, drawing fouls over and over again, driving and collapsing the defense, kicking out for threes. But most importantly, I thought RJ did a really good job of, initiating the offense and then throwing the quick bounce pass or pass over the top, but really early in pick and rolls where guys were slipping, and there was a clear game plan for the Raptors to slip to the rim because Boucher did it a couple times, Ochai did it a couple times. The Raptors just really consistent. I think Mobile got an alley-oop dunk on the same thing. Like Raps just really identified that way of exploiting the Suns defense. And yeah, then the Raptors were able to sort of like consistently get behind the defense. The second half, like I mentioned, the Suns switched to more zone, so it's a little harder to sort of slip behind like that. But also at the same time, I thought Chris was really just able to, live on putbacks, live in transition, live on slips to the basket, live on those two threes that he knocked down. I mean, Chris was a huge difference maker in this game. And it's always really impressive to me that Chris is like, I mean, like, look, we have an upcoming interview with Chris coming out, and I'm not exactly sure when it's going to come out, but, it is one that we were able to do with Chris when we were down in Philadelphia last week. When the Raps beat the Sixers, another sad team, by the way. The Suns are kind of like the Sixers, but of the Western Conference. But we talked to Chris before the game, and the reason I wanted to talk to Chris was like, he had a milestone coming up, right? Like Chris tonight has actually passed Vince Carter to officially. I think he has 404 games played now as a member of the Toronto Raptors. That is more games played than Vince Carter played for the Raptors. And by the way, it's the same number of seasons too, 7 seasons, which is so impressive considering the fact that Chris Boucher, his journey started with an Exhibit 10 deal, rolled up into a training camp invite, rolled up into a two-way contract, converted off a two-way because he dominated the G League that year, gets signed for the rest of the season, obviously gets to chip in 2019. Of course, he wasn't a big piece of the playing rotation, but still, like, that's a crazy journey already. Has signed since then 3 different contracts with the Raptors, and of course this post trade deadline survives the trade deadline. And now if he finishes out the season, I mean, he's going to be top 10 in games played as a Raptor. He's at 404. The 10th spot right now is actually a tie between Fred VanVleet and Alvin Williams at 417 games played, and there's still like 2 more months of the season to go. So assuming Chris is healthy and he's in the rotation, Chris Boucher is going to be a top 10 Raptor in terms of games played. And all of that to say, very, very impressive milestone. So we wanted to talk to Chris about it. But I think what I learned from that conversation was just like the maturation in his mentality. Like the one thing that's impressive is he's had 2 coaches as a Raptor, right? He's had Nick Nurse for 5 years, and then he's had Darko for 2 years. Both coaches have reached the conclusion at a certain point in their coaching career that, like, okay, you know what? We're gonna go with someone other than Chris. Like that's just what happens, right? Like last season, Chris barely played. Towards the end of Nick's tenure, Chris wasn't really playing. You know what I mean? And you know what? They're kind of decide. You know what? He's kind of imperfect. I feel like I should go on a different route, whether that's for youth or for whatever reason, defensively, offensively. Again, coaches is ultimately determined. Yeah, I don't really want to play Chris anymore. But then Chris just gets back into the rotation, like no matter what. Like he's not in the plans, but he finds his way back in there. And I find that so impressive. Like again, tonight, he was the 10th man for the Raptors, but he ends up closing the game and playing out the rest of the game as the 5th starter, and he made huge contributions down the stretch too. And I think that's like, I mean, look, he's not one of the top 10 best players to have put on a Raptors uniform, but I think the longevity, I think the way he's played, I think he's like kind of begrudgingly earned your respect. and he's become such a fan favorite. And I'm actually really, really happy to, just be able to sort of even evolve in my own conversations with Chris. So whenever that comes out, I'm hoping people watch it, and not even watch it for like it's not like the norm video where it's like, we're just recapping all these great times. Like, it's more of like catching up on like your career to date with the Raptors. And, but more than anything else, if you really listen to some of the words that he said in that interview, you'll see like the wisdom pouring out of him too. And I think that there's a mental maturation too that's happened, which is normal. Like, again, he spent 7 years here in Toronto. Like, if you don't change and get more wise in 7 years, I don't know, like, you must be living life wrong. But yeah, huge respects to Chris. And he actually, I mean, the fact that he outplays Kevin Durant, bro, like, when he first entered the NBA, he was on a two-way with the Suns, and that was not the Suns, the Warriors, and that was like peak Warriors, man. Super team Warriors with KD in them, and I mean, yeah, it's just really impressive to sort of see him. I mean, look, outplaying Kevin Durant at any moment is great, but this was a really good one. And yeah, I mean, all around, it's just a strong effort by the team, strong effort by the Raptors. And I know that this is like, okay, but we're supposed to be tanking, all that kind of stuff. I just got to say, when the Raptors are playing at home on a Sunday night, it's just, I mean, they're unnaturally good in those scenarios. And I will have to say, I don't think this changed anything in terms of the actual reverse standings, because with this win, the Raptors are now 3 games back of Charlotte for 4th. Charlotte is 14-41. Toronto is now 18-39. And between them, or I guess 6 would be Philadelphia at 20-36. Now, Philadelphia have lost 7 in a row. They're 1-9 in the last 10 games. They are so sad that the Raptors obviously went into Philadelphia and beat them. Joel Embiid's considering getting surgery, which, if you've seen any of the games recently, he definitely needs something, okay, because he is just moving around very, very sadly. And yeah, last game they just lost on a buzzer beater to Nick Claxton, so that's pretty tough. Nick Nurse not having a good time with those guys over there. The good luck has run out, but yeah, but I mean, still, like that's still 3 full games back. Philadelphia is of Toronto, so at least for the time being, this didn't affect anything. And so yeah, just I don't know, just enjoy it. But this has been a lot of fun, and I want to now turn my attention here and take some of your questions. So because I don't actually have Alex and Jerome here, I'm going to need you to leave your questions kind of in the live chat right about now, because if you left them in like the last like 20 minutes while I've been talking, I just haven't been able to sort of both talk and also track the questions. So maybe just drop the questions in again here. I apologize, obviously, for people who want to be early in the queue and all that kind of stuff. Again, if I could, I would do both, but I can't be in both places at once. But before we take your questions, I wanted to let you know that the Hello and Welcome podcast is brought to you by Tangerine Bank, who is an official sponsor of the Toronto Raptors, a foundational partner of NBA Canada, WNBA Canada. And they're not just fans of basketball, they're fans of basketball. They're fans of fans who love Chris Boucher. Love Chris Boucher for his longevity. They're fans of fans who love IQ for his 3-point celebrations, skipping down the court as he shuts the door on the Phoenix Suns. They're fans of fans who appreciate RJ's tough 3-point shooting down the stretch, who appreciate Scottie Barnes' lockdown defense on KD all night. Not to be understated whatsoever, because they're fans of basketball. And this season, for the Raptors' 30th anniversary, Tangerine is turning the spotlight from the court to the stands and celebrating the way Raptor fans support this team, because this is how we fan. To learn more, visit tangerine.ca/basketball. And yeah, okay, let's get to some of the questions, because this one was really fun, and I have been seeing quite a bit of feedback here, which is really fun. Let's start with this one, because I can't really resist a little bit of Sixers slander. Which was the question here? Hold on. There was somebody who said, all right, let's just get this one, actually. This one from Donkey. The Sixers just suck. They don't even own their pick unless it gets into the top 6. Yeah, man. Obviously, the Sixers did not expect to be in this position. They now hold 2 of the worst contracts in the NBA, between Paul George, who has this fall off has to be studied from Paul George. I know it's not easy going into a new situation. I know he's obviously older. I think everyone has seen the stats out there that he's put out more podcast episodes than actual games played. Um, but like, I mean, come on, man. Like, this is it's outrageous how much his production has slipped, and the fact that this is in the first year of a 4-year guaranteed max contract does make this even worse than the Tobias Harris contract, because at least the Sixers were able to. Well, I mean, they weren't paying him as much, and also he was at least in his prime. Um, yeah, this is pretty bad. And then Joel Embiid's health. I mean, his contract. I mean, he's fully deserves it because he's that caliber player. But also at the same time, if he's not available, it's just nasty to see, man. It's nasty to see. I guess all the precautionary falling to the floor from the doctors has not prevented him from suffering injuries. And so, hopefully for his sake, he's able to at least get healthy at some point. Take some time off. Maybe don't chase for a free gold in the summertime like you did last summer. But whatever. But yeah, I mean, this is just a disaster of a season. I think, honestly, I saw another question here is like, do you think Nick Nurse gets fired in the offseason? I think that's a really strong chance. I definitely, when I watch Sixers games, do not see a strong response from the Sixers to their head coach. I can only imagine how difficult that locker room is right now, especially based on the characters that are in there. And quite frankly, I don't think it should end with Nick Nurse. I think it should end with the front office. I mean, like, Daryl Morey fumbling this team in a situation where, look, Daryl took over the team in a situation where the team had at least accumulated a lot of assets, okay? Maybe it wasn't, like, fully achieving at that level. Maybe he, wasn't inheriting, like, a championship-ready team, but they had a lot of assets, and he's had a lot of chances here to make some big swings. And obviously he makes the big swing to get James Harden. That doesn't work out. Ultimately, he snakes James Harden to the point where James Harden tries to start World War III in China, calling him a liar, which he is. And then he snakes James Harden, who has since gone to the Clippers, to take Paul George's spot. That does free Paul George to come to Philadelphia. But if you look at it, if you're the Sixers, you would much rather have James Harden than you would have Paul George right now. So you're legit hustling backwards. You make your big signing in the summer. It's Paul George. It has not worked out even in the slightest. You make your big thing of like, okay, we're going to fire Doc. We're going to bring in Nick Nurse. I'm pretty sure there was some tampering that went on there, because I don't think Nick Nurse would have, in the middle of being a Raptors head coach and in the middle of a play-in run at least, which, I mean, whatever. You want to call it ridiculous that the Raptors are in a play-in run. That season was miserable, whatever. But you're still professionally employed by the Toronto Raptors. And I believe it was like April 7th, and the season ended like in 2 weeks after that. But Nick Nurse in Philadelphia before a game, unprompted, goes on and says, I don't know about my future with the team. I got to really assess things. And how convenient to say that in Philadelphia, in a place where he's worked for Daryl Morey before. That was in the G League system for Houston when Daryl was in Houston. And then he ends up in Houston, or in Philadelphia, take over the team. The whole like, oh, Nick and Joel Embiid, they're like, wow, you're the guy who stopped me, so you should coach me. And, what I mean? Like, oh, well, that didn't really last for very long, did it? And now they're in this situation. And quite frankly, some heads have got to roll, because Philadelphia is not like they're a very unique market. I mean, I happened to be there last week when the Raptors beat the Suns, or beat the Sixers. And it was 3 or 4 minutes into the game, and it was 14-4, and they were already booing very loudly. Like, after 4 minutes, man. I mean, as much as the Raptors have had some bad moments this year, I think people obviously understand that it's a tank, but like the Raptors have had a lot of bad moments in the last 5 years. Like, this is their third time tanking in 5 years now, but I've never heard booing in 3 minutes, man. So there's going to be a lot of pressure. There's so much pent up frustration. You have to understand the expectations that got managed into this. I think probably Nick gets fired, but I also think they should really take a long, hard look at Daryl Morey as well, man. He has, I mean, yeah, this is not a well managed team, and I don't know. I don't think signing another couple of 30-year-olds is going to be band-aiding anything. The fact that they're starting Eric Gordon in 2025 is pretty incredible. Okay, next one. I'm gonna let's see here. Okay, what about this one from Kevin? Given what you've seen from the team to date, would you rather make the play-in or guarantee us a top 5 pick? Guys, I love this win. I love seeing the Raptors win and get excited. I've seen the chat here say that Chris Boucher got the chain. He absolutely deserves it. Give Chris Boucher the world, man. He's been great. But like, let's be honest here, okay? What's that? So I saw Andre Iguodala got his jersey retired by the Warriors tonight. Very deserved, obviously. Was part of 4 championships. And there was one really touching moment where Steph was like, up there giving the speech after the game, and he was like, one of those moments I really love from Andre Iguodala was in the 2022 NBA Finals. He was coming off the bench and he wasn't even in the game, but during a stop and play, he was like, come over here. And he was telling Andrew Wiggins to come over here, and then was sort of giving him some sort of instruction, basically telling him to shape up. And yeah, I mean, this is my version of just like, guys, let's focus on the prize here, okay? Raps are trying to thread a very, very careful needle here. They are trying to develop. They are trying to give their young players time to, develop and showcase their skills and develop chemistry and build winning habits. But their absolute ideal and their absolute goal here is to capture a top-end pick by losing some of these games, preferably down the stretch when they keep it close and guys play well, but ultimately they lose, kind of like that Miami game. And then to hold out Brandon Ingram, and by next season, have Ingram healthy, have the development that's gone into RJ, IQ, Scottie, but also, what you're seeing with the second unit right now, Jamal Shed, Jonathan Mobo, Jacoby Walter, Grady Dick, those kind of guys, Ochai Agbaji, if he's, like that kind of stuff, plus a top 5 pick. And then they're going to try to make a push next year. But right now, the Raptors, the remainder of the season, have to thread this careful needle. And quite frankly, like I said, like there's not the bottom of the standings aren't that crunched up where the Raptors can't afford to like win a game here or there to compromise their lottery odds. But like at the same time, when you look at the standings, like the Raptors, I think have 25 more games left, and only 5 of those games are teams above 500. So they actually have like a ridiculously easy schedule down the stretch. So I don't know. You're probably going to have to see some pretty creative methods of tanking down the stretch, but I'm pretty sure you will see that from the Raptors. But yeah, I mean, the play-in, look, guys, what are we doing? Okay, let's get in the play-in. We win 1 or 2 games, and then we face the Boston Celtics, or we face like the Cleveland Cavaliers. Like that sounds like a guaranteed loss, and the Raptors are just not ready for that right now. So let's focus on the prize. I'm gonna hit you with the Andre Iguodala meme. So we got to focus right now. Okay, another question here as I continue to scroll through this. Wow, this is a lot easier when Alex and Jerome was around. I'm sorry, guys. What else, man? This from Kalen. When will Hello and Welcome go on tour in Canada? Honestly, like if we really have motion like that in provinces outside of Ontario, please let us know. If you're a fan in like Quebec, or if you're a fan in like, I know we got some fans in like, I mean, I think the most remote places we received notes from were from Corner Brook, which I think is Nova Scotia. Don't be mad if it's not Nova Scotia. If it's Newfoundland, I think it's Nova Scotia. Shouts to Shanda. And also somebody once wrote us from, I believe, like it was like a very small town in like Saskatchewan or something like that. So like that's great. But I mean, I think like, yeah, realistically, if we have a lot of fans in like Montreal, if we have a lot of fans in like Vancouver, maybe Calgary, like that kind of stuff, maybe Halifax, you know what I mean? But I appreciate it regardless. That's really nice. I appreciate this. Also, by the way, I appreciate all the fans who actually came out to our event on Saturday, which was held at U of T. That was actually largely Alex's creation, so big props to Alex Wong for putting that together. Yeah, we had actually gathered together a lot of like vintage sellers and people with just ridiculous collections of Raptors gear, and for a free event for the community, and we were able to bring people out. It was great time at Hart House at U of T. We dished out a whole bunch of June plum patties as well. By the way, that is Grady Dick's favorite patty in the city is June Plum's oxtail patty. If you haven't had it yet, make sure you rectify this immediately and go to Patois and go to June Plum and get this thing done at Dundas and Bathurst. But it was a great time. It was a great time seeing everybody. Some great collections. I mean, shouts to our friend Kai, who brought out his collection of like I mean, there was like multiple Vince Carter and one shoes from back in the day. That thing was like made of pure leather. I don't know how he hooped in a leather shoe. There's the other suede one. There was like I mean, the jerseys that were out there between like In Vintage We Trust and also Kai's collection. I mean, I saw Jake Voskuhl 77. If you're a real Raptor fan, you know Jake Voskuhl is, which is crazy. I saw multiple, not one, but two Solomon Alabi number 50 jerseys from Josh's collection at In Vintage We Trust. I saw a game-worn Oliver Miller jersey on Kai's collection, which literally looks like a dress. Like, it is so it's so tall, which I guess is not a surprise for anybody who's seen Oliver Miller, who is like well north of 300 pounds, but very, very skilled, very, very skilled center for a man of his size. I think the craziest one I saw was a 3 in a row. It was the St. Patty's Day all green jersey, which is like a very, very throwback Raptors jersey from back in the day. I think this was like 08, 09 that season. But they had a St. Patty's Day jersey that was all green. And it was, and this must have been like 11, 12 because the player was Marcus Banks on the back. That's crazy. Game worn Marcus Banks. Then that was next to a Raptors Italian edition jersey, which was only worn for one season in 2009. That was a TJ Ford. Next to a Spanish edition jersey, which again was also only worn in one season, which belonged to Jamario Moon. So it was actually a great event. And then we all just got on the court for an open run afterwards. And honestly, I got to say, it was actually really fun. I said to both Jerome and Alex afterwards that, like, based on we're so privileged right now to have, obviously, an established audience with the Raptors and stuff like that. But we always wanted to find ways to sort of get back to the hoops community, which has obviously given us so much here in Toronto, that we actually really floated the idea of like actually creating some sort of like very accessible, but like some sort of recurring type of run, because I know like it's actually pretty difficult to get access to court space, especially in the winter. Like obviously you're never going to be outside shooting. It'd be pretty ridiculous to be shooting outside right now based on what's happening in Toronto, but setting up some sort of league, and we obviously have some connections to sort of like get access to courts, and just finding something like that will be really fun. But of course, this will be something we try to do in the off season. Right now we're kind of busy, but anyway, long tangent, but yeah, shouts to all our fans, man. Seriously, and we just want to find ways to sort of get back, whether that's through events or even just getting to. I was actually really fun getting to hoop with fans, man. It was actually great. So that was a long question, but I appreciate it. Next one from Raptors Moments: does Bud look more stressed than when he was in Milwaukee? I think Bud has like an incredible in-game face. Like I think the soccer equivalent of this is Pep Guardiola. Not to say, by the way, that Bud is anywhere close to Pep Guardiola. I mean, I'm all the way down to slander Man City after them catching another 2-0 loss to Liverpool tonight, baby. 11 points clear, top of the table. But like, Pep has like an incredibly memeable face. And like, for example, tonight Salah scored the first goal and it was 1-0, and this guy like fell onto his knees and then fell onto his back somehow with his knees. Like, I don't understand how he didn't break his knees doing that, but like, he just loves, like, I guess he just has a bad habit of getting caught on camera looking terrible. Bud is the exact same in basketball, man. No matter if the Suns are up or down or his team is up or down, his face just like is permanently like smelling a fart no matter what. Like Coach Bud just like cracks me up every single time. Very good, very, very, very good regular season coach, and obviously has won a championship too. But it is always funny seeing Coach Bud. I mean, part of it is because of the 2019. Like, I think there's always going to be lingering resentment over some of those opponents from back in the day. But like, the fact that Mike Budenholzer was complaining about Drake giving Nick Nurse a shoulder rub on the sideline back when Drake used to actually come to the Raptor games. It's just so funny to me. Like, why did you want a shoulder rub? I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry you didn't get a shoulder rub from Drake in that kind of run. And of course, yeah, we also saw Bud sprint onto the court tonight. That was pretty funny. That was all pretty funny. It was a really nice game just all around. Good vibes, good stuff here. We're gonna scroll a little bit for some more questions here. How many statues should we build of Boucher? I mean, I feel like it would be kind of fun to like I mean, this is one of my things with just Toronto in general. Like, I wish there was more like Raptors memorabilia, like just around the city, like just more physical, like I don't know, like like if you go to LA, for example, there's like LA's super famous for their murals and stuff. Like, there's just like lots of street art in LA in general. Um, but like they just have murals of everybody. Like, there's already a mural of like Kobe and Luca, and Luca's been there for a couple of weeks. You know what I mean? And that's just like what they do. And I feel like with Toronto, like it's a little bit harder to find signs of not just honestly, not just the Raptors. I think even the same thing about the Leafs, same thing about the Jays. But like, I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't think Chris is going to get a statue, but like, can there be a Chris Boucher mural at some point? Can some young Raptor fan who is like also a entrepreneurial artist, like can somebody just like put up more Raptors art around the city? That will be great. I think that will be really fun. Next one from late to class. Whose future is in more trouble, Sixers or Suns? I mean, if you even have to ask, it's pretty bad. I think the Suns have at least exhausted all their picks, so that alone makes it worse than what's going on in the Sixers. I also feel like the Sixers, realistically, if Embiid's able to get healthy again, that team shoots right back into the playoff picture. And I don't think they, get past the second round, because that's not what the Sixers ever do. But like, I think the Sixers have a much easier path of bouncing back in the Eastern Conference versus the West. And the West is heavy like competition no matter what. I don't remember one year when the West was bad. Like, in my entire time following basketball, like 25 years now, I don't remember one year of the Suns being bad, so, or the West being bad. So yeah, it's got to be the Suns, man. It's pretty bad for both of those guys. This one from Antoinette. Hey Nick, good luck with those guys. Yo, I love that Raps beat the Suns, and there's a healthy bit of Sixers slander. I think this is sort of my this is what I love about Raptor fans, is that like we get petty. I mean, even when the Raptors are tanking, Raps are like 18-37 or whatever on the season, and they're like, nah, let's still find time to slander other teams. And yeah, I really enjoy it, man. I think this question here is who wins a one-on-one between Bobby Webster or Masai. I think that it just got auto-corrected to massive. But I've seen Bobby hoop. I've seen footage of Bobby hoop. I've seen footage of Bobby hooping against players that I've actually played against myself. Bobby takes this easily. With all due respect to Masai, who's in great shape. He's 6'4". He actually played professional basketball too. Over in the British Basketball League and then a couple other leagues elsewhere. He played a little in college as well. But Bobby can hoop, man. Bobby got a really good shot too. And realistically, we're talking about like a 40-year-old versus a, again, just two 40-year-olds, let's say, hooping against each other. I mean, they're probably going to be taking jumpers, and whoever makes more of those is going to be the winner here. And Bobby is legitimately got a very, very silky jumper. So credit to Bobby. That's actually one of my goals. I actually really want to hoop against Bobby at some point. We got to try to make this thing happen. This one from Steve Lamb. Which fan base is worse, Philly or Boston? Like I said earlier, if you got to ask, you know what I mean? I think, which one's worse, man? Boston. You know what the thing with Boston fan base? Like, everyone hates the Boston fan base, but at least they've won a lot. Like, no, I don't think us city has been as successful as Boston, or maybe just the New England area in the last like 10 years. I think basically since the Red Sox beat the Yankees and made that huge comeback from down 3-0, and I think that was like 2004 or whatever. But for the last 20 years, like, how many chips have they won, man? The Red Sox have won multiple times. The Celtics in that stretch have actually won multiple times as well. 2008, and obviously they're reigning champions. The Patriots won a whole bunch of times. The Bruins, they won, right? I mean, I'm not like that big of a fan of hockey, but I'm pretty sure the Bruins won once or twice too. So at least they have like the bragging rights. Philadelphia, obviously they have won the Super Bowl here twice in the last like couple years, so that's been fun for them. But I don't know, Philly fans, I give Philly fans like there's like a bit of moxie that goes along with it, but Yeah, I think probably Philly fans right now. Eventually, you just got to pipe down a little bit, but I don't know. We're also talking trash when we're having an 18-win team right now. This is Toronto fans might not have beat that great ourselves too. KBS, can we acknowledge just how bad winning versus these non-Wizards/Hornets teams are at this point, though? The Suns were likely probably a top 10 hardest remaining team in our schedule. Yeah, I mean, I think that's true. Like, the Suns actually are one of the tougher teams that were on the Raptors calendar. And I know next week they play Boston, and then they play Indiana. Once they play those two teams, like, the three best teams the Raptors will play down the stretch here will be Golden State, who have actually played really well since Jimmy Butler's got there. Another big win for them tonight. They're 5-1 since adding Jimmy. So I'm assuming Golden State will be a pretty good opponent. I mean, it'll be in Golden State as well. I think that's pretty much a guaranteed loss. Dallas, which by the end of the season, they will have needed. I mean, that's like this one of the, I think the last week of the season, they're going to need every win to make the play-in. The Raptors will have every incentive to tank down the stretch as well. So for me, that's probably much a guaranteed loss as well. And I think the other, let me look at their schedule again, man. There's only one more team that's even above 500 past the Raptors schedule down the stretch here. What is it? It is who else do they play here? Oh, Detroit Pistons. Wow. I mean, okay, yeah. So Pistons maybe also looking to avoid the play-in at that point. So let's just give them the win, even though that will be a game at home in Toronto. And despite the Pistons having a good season, I still could see the Raptors beating them. Like, past that, it's like the Blazers are pretty plucky right now. They're in the midst of an in-season turnaround. They're better than the record would suggest. They play the Blazers twice because they haven't played them yet. But like, yeah, I don't know, man. They're gonna have to get creative, and I think they're gonna have to sort of hold out more than just Jakob in some of these games. They're gonna have to find ways to sort of like, really sell it to the team that like, hey, you know what, we're gonna have to not play Scottie tonight, or like we're not gonna play RJ tonight, or like we're not gonna play IQ, like something. But the schedule is going to make it very difficult to tank. At the same time, though, I do think that by the season's end, the Raptors will be in the 5th spot in terms of the lottery odds, and at that point, it just becomes, as Bobby has said multiple times, we got to pray to the lottery gods. So we'll see. We'll sort of see. Next one from CT. Can you comment on Jacoby? Yeah, man, I love Jacoby. I love the fact that. He's found a nice pocket of consistency here where, he's had a nice string here. I think he had like multiple games in a row of double-digit scoring. Tonight, he only had 6 points on 2 of 6 shooting. He couldn't get the 3 to drop, but I like the shots that he was taking. I like the on-ball pressure that he applies. I could see a two-way future for Jacoby. I think that he has a really great sense of how to use up fakes, and whether that's to draw fouls or to sort of gain an advantage to create a better angle. But a lot of rookies, I find that they rush. Like Jamal Shed, for example, he plays at a really good pace, and he uses his speed a lot of the time to get an advantage. And usually he drives really hard and then throws a pass out for a shooter. And sometimes that works. Sometimes that becomes a bad pass turnover. He leaves his feet to pass a lot. But my point is Jamal kind of rushes a lot. Jacoby is pretty rare in that sense for a rookie, where he really knows how to take his time and use his own pace, and he just doesn't seem too eager to score, even though he's looking to score, and he's been really aggressive. I mean, right now, I think the difficult part for him will be, the fact that Grady Dick obviously is ahead of him in the rotation. I think Ochai obviously is kind of ahead of him in the rotation as well, but this is probably where down the stretch you're going to be seeing a lot of all of these guys. And out of all the guys Raptors picked this year, the one I am most intrigued by is Jacoby. So, big fan of Jacoby. Big fan of Jacoby. Cornerbrook is Newfoundland. I'm sorry. Apologize to all of y'all in the Maritimes. I really don't know my geography, unfortunately. Next one from Kareem. Barbrito must be pissed to spend so much money on Kelly Olynyk commercials only for him to be traded 2 weeks later. Yeah, there's actually a big throng of Kelly Olynyk fans that were there on Friday for the Raptors versus the Heat game. They came early. They were all wearing wigs. They were all wearing 41 jerseys. which I cannot believe there are that many people who are that diehard fans of Kelly Olynyk. I mean, I think more than anything else, I think you got it backwards. I think Kelly Olynyk's pretty lucky to get Barbarito commercials, with all due respect. I mean, I'm not saying that like, you know, I mean, look, just a lot of bench players getting commercials. You know what I mean? It is just what it is. And, I'm happy that Kelly was able to play in Canada. I know that was always his dream to play for the Raptors. His mom had worked as a scorekeeper of the Raptors, like near the inception of the franchise in the 90s. So that's got to be such a cool moment for their whole family. The Raptors also, paid him, which is good because he's guaranteed $13 million for next year as well. So, no harm, no foul. But yeah, Barbarito, that's a tough one. It's okay. I didn't really love the commercial. I'm not gonna lie. It was all right. It's a little bit annoying. What can I say? Next one here. Will, did I watch Raptors Delight Part 3? I actually did. Yeah, this is my schedule for today. Okay. It's a Sunday, so I slept in. Made some. Wrap some dumplings. It's become like my weekend routine. Just make a whole bunch of dumplings. Obviously 11:30 rolled around. That was the big match of the weekend in the Premier League between Liverpool and Manchester City. Liverpool is the top of the league. And I mean, look, I don't have to explain it to any soccer fan. Liverpool versus City has been like a really, really good matchup for the last like basically decade now. Liverpool goes up 2-0 in the first half. They end up closing it out 2-0. Thoroughly dominating City. Kevin De Bruyne, I have one message for you. I have all the respect in the world for you, Kevin De Bruyne. But like what Jamie Carragher said, there's a saying in football: leave the football before the football leaves you. I cannot believe that this is the level Kevin De Bruyne is playing at these days. But he was a great player. But I mean, he was honestly a liability tonight, and it's really sad to see. So I was watching that. Around halftime of that match, that was when the European Championships of the Pokemon, European Championships were taking place. So there is one VGC player that I follow, which is Wolf Glick. He was in the final, so I was watching that. Big spoiler, but I guess, yeah, he wins again. Unbelievable stuff. Actually, a really, really fun set. So watched that at halftime, went back to the City game. Then it was what was the first game? Knicks versus Celtics. Poor Knicks, man. I mean, they went all in on a team that realistically cannot beat any top teams out there. Anytime they play the Cavs, anytime they play OKC, anytime they play Boston, they get completely humbled. And obviously the Knicks, like, they've humbled the Raptors many times this year, but like we know the Raptors are in a different place. The Knicks went all in. Like, in a poker analogy, the Knicks went all in on like a pair of queens. And you're just not really going to be winning that many hands with queens at the very end, especially if you have multiple players. And yeah, they have no chance against the Celtics. The Celtics just destroy them every single time. It's the same game that happened on opening night, was the same game that happened tonight. I feel a little bit bad for OG because I know he can catch a lot of heat, but like super overextended as a player who's on a max contract. Mikal Bridges, 5 picks. I mean, damn. Okay. And Cat, who like has had a really good season as an all-star player, has torched the Raptors, all that being said, but like playing him at the 5 is just an invitation to get scored on every time, especially when you have teams that can space it out, like the Celtics can. And so they run into issues every time they play them. They run into issues every time they play Cleveland. And if they somehow even got through both of those guys, I don't think they could take down whoever's going to win in the West either. So bit of an awkward blowout for the Knicks. Then what I watched, it was the Warriors Mavs game. That was pretty fun too. And then obviously Raptors. So yeah, in between that, I did watch a little bit of Raptors Delight. I had that on the second screen. It was fun. I think for me, like I really enjoyed the first episode of Raptors Delight. That was covered a lot of a portion of the Raptors that I did not live through, which was the inception of the team. I've obviously read Prehistoric by Alex Wong, which is a really great resource for anybody who's interested in Raptors history. But it was great to sort of see those moments. Like, again, I didn't watch any of like Damon Stoudemire. I wasn't around for like all the weird ownership changes back then, so that was fun revisiting that season, the win on opening night, the win over Jordan's 72 win Bulls, which was pretty crazy at Skydome. Episode 2, I also really enjoyed that too because again, wasn't around for the Vince saga with the Raptors. I did ultimately come out of it with the sense of like, wow, this is overwhelmingly positive towards Vince, which I suppose this is sort of the theme of the season. But you know, I'm not even trying to like drive a wedge. I'm not trying to like reopen some sort of 20-year-old wound. I'm just sort of like, wow, this is like very strongly like. I mean, when they got to the point where they're like, hey man, Vince actually asked to not be traded. I was like, bro, I'm not trying to hear this, man. I was at least around for at least the sentiment at the time. Like some things you can't take back. You know what I mean? Like, come on, man. You can't break up with the team and then be like, just kidding. No, never mind. Like, that's a little too late. And quite frankly, the doc was very, very strongly in favor of Vince's side. Um, it also just like I mean, like I don't think Rob Babcock was a particularly great GM. Certainly did not do a good job as a Raptors GM. Certainly did fumble the Vince Carter trade. But like the guy's also dead and he can't speak for himself. Like it just doesn't necessarily feel entirely fair to be like, actually it's all entirely his fault. And let's try to like reclaim a little bit of face for everyone else still involved. So that part I kind of left a bad taste, but I'm still like, okay, it's still a fun documentary. And then I watched part 3 tonight. You know, a couple of things that was interesting to me. Number one, they didn't cover any of Bargnani being the number 1 pick, which I thought was a pretty big defining era for that time. I was around for that time. There were so many debates around Bargnani. You know, was he good? Was he not good? Should the Raptors build around him? The Raptors fail him? Whatever. You know, like it was like a huge defining conversation for Raptors fandom at that time. You know, and you know, it's also like when you think back on it, it's the number 1. This is the only ever number 1 pick the Raptors ever had, and his story is very interesting. But like, it's literally not even talked about. It's just mentioned that he got traded. They skipped through the entire like Chris Bosh era, which I mean, admittedly, like it is a pretty forgettable era. I think that like they covered the fact that like Jose Calderon threw the pass a little bit too short in Game 6 in 2007, and you know Richard Jefferson picked off the pass. That guy still annoys me to this day. I don't care. Every time I see his bald dome, I'm like, I don't like you. Whatever. But they just fast forwarded the Chris Bosh story like really quickly. They didn't really cover like how fun that 06-07 team was, because that was genuinely for me like an exhilarating season. It's probably a top 5 season for me, just as a fan enjoying it. And then it was just like straight to like, you know, Chris leaves in free agency and, you know, whatever. Chris wasn't involved in the documentary, so he didn't speak for that side. And then they kind of just like really quickly pivoted towards the Colin DeMar era, which I mean, I just wish that like they had spent more time. Again, these are all like nitpicks in the sense of like this is just my own personal experience of fandom. But like I wish it got its own episode rather than it kind of being like I guess attached onto a like 10-minute sort of like hyper course of what happened in Colangelo's tenure with Toronto. I feel like that could have been its own episode, and then Colin DeMar could be its own episode, and then the championship year could be its own episode. But yeah, regardless, I guess you can't just have infinite episodes. Love seeing Blake in it a lot. Shouts to Blake Murphy, my former co-host and longtime friend. Love seeing Michael Grange tell a lot of the story as well. Grange is a great dude. Another friend of mine as well. So it was great to sort of like talk about that era and sort of seeing them come together and stuff like that. But at the same time, I don't know. They also skated through a lot of seasons, like the 15-16 season. They kind of just skated by it. But like the redemption of what happened in 2015 when they got swept by the Wizards, to Kyle Lowry getting skinny, to the Raptors signing like some defensively minded players. Like, I mean, DeMar Carroll didn't necessarily work out, but it certainly fit in that mold. Corey Joseph, Bismack Biyombo. That season of them winning 56 games, the All-Star being here in Toronto, Kyle and DeMar being the ambassadors for that year, Drake's increased involvement with the team, the fact that they finally got over their Game 1 woes. Actually, no, did they get over Game 1 woes? No, that still wasn't that year. But the fact that they finally won their first 7-game playoff series in 2016 against the Pacers and then against Miami. I mean, both of those went to Game 7s. I felt like those could have been covered a little bit more. And had it gone in its own episode, which it kind of was just like fast forwarded through like, okay, the Raptors are good. Now they lose to LeBron all the time. And now they tease the fact that DeMar's going to get traded. And obviously Casey got fired. They didn't cover the fact that Casey got fired and then had to accept the coach of the year without actually being employed by the Raptors, which was a heavily awkward moment. I just felt like there were so many moments there that like just me as a fan, I wish that like it got even more attention. But nevertheless, like I really enjoy the Raptors, the Light documentary in general. I love that I've said this in previous episodes, but I love that they've put in this amount of investment, both in terms of the money side, but also in terms of the time and effort to sort of put together such, such a period of time that, quite frankly, if sports is not gonna cover it, then who will? You know what I mean? Like, so I thought it was pure fan service just in general to have it. So I'm generally a fan. I'm genuinely like a very appreciative. I think just like I'm such a fan that I wish it went into more detail. Like you don't need to sort of like put the Chris Bosh episode with the Kyle and DeMar episode. You just don't. But it's been really fun. It's been really fun. Let's take two more because yeah, okay, this one from Drew Haley. How would you grade Scottie's season so far, and what does he need to improve? His score, I would probably give Scottie. I'd probably give Scottie an A- on the season, maybe a B plus. I think that what does he need to improve is pretty clear. Like, I think the 3-point shooting, I think his ability to sort of get to his own shot is probably like the biggest concern with his game just in general. On that front, he's certainly improved the mid-range shooting. Like you saw a bit of that tonight where he was able to knock down a couple of middies. I even like when he pump faked, got the closeout, stepped in and knocked down that shot. I know like that's basically a banned shot nowadays in the NBA because it's like bad in terms of the analytics, but also at the same time, I think it's relative to the person. And I think getting Scottie more comfortable with scoring and getting to his shot and being aggressive is like the number one thing I wanted to see from him this year. And he has at least unlocked that mid-range portion of the game. So that part's been fun. But certainly the 3-point shooting has been a real issue. He's not even hitting 30%. Tonight, he actually made some pretty big ones, too. So shouts to Scottie for that. I think he made 2 threes, including one in the fourth quarter. Other than that, though, I think the one part that isn't necessarily seen in the stats is just like the commitment to leading the team. I think when you take a step back and think about, okay, maybe not the minute stuff with like, is he going to be a good 3-point shooter? Can he sort of get a go-to shot, whatever? The biggest thing for Scottie this year is they have firmly cleared out everybody that was here beforehand that had any claim to leading the team, right? Whether that was Nick Nurse as the old coach, whether that was, Fred VanVleet, the old point guard, or Pascal Siakam, the old star of the team. They got rid of all those guys, and they firmly turned it over to Scottie. Now, they wanted to do it last year as well, but Scottie ended up breaking his hand. They missed a lot of time, so that didn't really happen. This year, that was sort of the big goal. And I know Masai has had so many conversations with Scottie one-on-one about sort of like embracing, maturing, getting to this moment where you're sort of like doing a really difficult thing, which is leading an organization at a very young age. And I think he's actually done a really good job of that. Now, I think that you can debate in terms of like, does he have the skill set to do it? Is he good enough of a scorer? Like, that's a basketball conversation. I think more than anything else, as a person, you're seeing the maturation from Scottie. Yes, he still has some moments like where he's a little silly, like looking back on the fast breaks and stuff like that. But like, you just have to accept it, man. That's just like generational difference. Like that's basically like Charles Barkley yelling about people shooting threes at this point. Like just kids in this generation are gonna be a little different. They grew up with a lifetime of highlights and social media. Of course, they're gonna play to that. It's gonna back your mind. It's instinctual. More than anything else, though, it's the maturity to sort of like stay competitive and keep competing. One of my things that used to bother me with watching Scottie was like I didn't feel like he was always 100% locked into the game. And sometimes that would manifest with like he'd be there great in the fourth quarter, but the first three wasn't really particularly strong. Or honestly, like I know what I saw. There was a lot of frustration on the court. Again, really, really bad chemistry for the team 2 years ago. So like that bothered me in the sense of like I don't care what you guys have to work through. Just play your best and like give us the best effort. I don't even think there's been like 2 or 3 games this season where I can say that about Scottie. I think he's been locked in every single game. Defensively, he's giving you a great effort. And he's just, for me, anything else, he's just giving you what he has. Maybe what he has isn't enough, but you can't ask somebody to give you more than what they got. But he's locked in every single game, man. He's trying to set guys up. He's trying to play the right way. He's trying to lead the team. And he's locked in and engaged. And I know that it doesn't look like the final product yet, or maybe the final product isn't that like Scottie is like a great scorer and a great passer and a great defender and a great leader and was completely serious all the time. Like, I don't know. Maybe it gets to that point. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it doesn't live up to like, Darko's infamous rant of like Scottie Barnes can be the face of the league. But I actually see a lot of maturation from him this year. Like I really have had no strong complaints. I think you got to figure out the scoring portion, and that's probably what's going to get you the A. But yeah, if this was parent-teacher interview, I would say that Scottie's actually done a really good job, not just with the B plus, but remember if you were, I mean, I don't know, I was in public school, so if you were in like the Toronto District School Board, you get your like grade for the year, like your grade in algebra is like 95 or whatever, but then like you have off to the side like those 6 boxes of like communication, um, engagement, like I don't know how locked in you were, your punctuality. Like they had these like 6 other boxes where you can get letter grades in. I feel like Scottie is a B plus like for the year in terms of like he's probably like I don't know like what's a B plus like 79. Like you know what I mean? Like he's probably 79 for the season in terms of percentage grades, but in those boxes I'm seeing a lot of A's and yeah, that maybe not as important as the overall grade, but I actually do like what I'm seeing so far from him. Let's take one last one because this has been fun, but it's also very difficult to look for questions and also answer them at the same time. What else, man? What else? You know what? Let's take this one from Jamie. Jamie says, "I'm so happy to see the culture of the Raptors have now because they've literally started from scratch. The rookies we love so much only know this Raptors culture and look to be having so much fun." Honestly, I definitely agree with this. I think that like, especially now that people are, let's say, more willing to talk about what the locker room was like in that stretch. Certainly a lot of tension and a lot of like it just didn't seem aligned. I didn't think Nick did a good job. I didn't think the leaders of the team did a great job. I don't think Scottie did a great job. I just like honestly that 2022-2023 season when they lost obviously to DeAndre DeRozan in the play-in. I don't think the front office did a great job. Like literally nobody did a great job in that whole season. Like they fumbled a great sense of momentum of like the Raptors getting a second chance to sort of propel that old playoff group and that old championship group to sort of keep it going. So the Raptors obviously had to pivot into a reset. You can quibble in terms of like, could they have reset earlier? Maybe they don't make the Jakob trade, whatever. But like, they at least committed to what they needed to do, which was reset. And since then, the wins haven't come yet. I think last season was it was just a shit show, really. Like they had 33 players, 33 different people wore a Raptors uniform in a Raptors game last season. It is a franchise record. They were pulling guys off the street. They had Jonte Porter who did his thing. It was just a lot going on last season. It just was very bad. But I've really enjoyed this season for how refreshing it is. Number one, when you take away expectations, it certainly does allow you to sort of appreciate what's in front of you. I don't think that's just in basketball. I think that's also just maybe in life in general. I mean, certainly for me, I know in my therapy sessions, half my conversations are about managing expectations. So I know it's a big thing for me, but regardless, resetting expectations has really allowed for a better watching experience. But then also it's been refreshing to see people embrace that. Like the fact that like Scottie is embracing the challenge of leading this team. He doesn't have it right now to do it and to lead them to a playoff position or anything like that. But he is trying every day to do that. And I see that effort and I appreciate that. Seeing IQ and RJ. IQ, who didn't have a future in New York because of the fact that they had Jalen Brunson there. And I think he was going to be a 6-man. I think he's good enough to be a starting point guard in this league. He gets that chance in Toronto. He's been paid for it. Now he's settled in. Of course, he had injuries, but he's put that behind him. Hopefully he has a strong finish to the season. We've seen what he could do tonight. It feels pretty good to have a pull-up three-point shooter, right? So he was looking for a fresh start, and he got that here in Toronto. RJ, who had gone through a lot of shit in New York, was part of the start of that rebuild and them turning it around, made the playoffs with them, but ultimately he gets flipped, and whatever. They needed OG. They needed a 3-and-D guy, but RJ was so happy to be coming back home to Toronto. Nothing against New York. He liked it there too, but it's just different when you play at home, man. Like, I mean, we've had other Canadians play as Raptors before, but it just doesn't hit the same as like, I mean, we've seen RJ Barrett. Everyone saw RJ Barrett coming from a mile away. Like, one of the greatest Canada basketball moments before the World Cup, and I guess before going to the Olympics, was RJ Barrett in the under 19 or under 17 team. I think under 17 team. 38 points against the USA, beating US in the final. I remember watching that on like a stream while I was at Wonderland in the summer, man. Like it's 2017. That was a really impressive moment for Canada basketball just as a program. So we've seen RJ coming from a mile away. For him to come to Toronto, for him to sort of surpass all the expectations that were put on him, for him to have improvements across the board. Like I said last episode, like don't take RJ for granted. I mean, RJ Barrett tonight got to the foul line 12 times, knocked down those 3 threes at the end, 23 points, did a great job running the offense in the moments he had it, setting up guys as well. Did a great job. And then this rookie class, man. The rookie class has been super fun. Oh, and Grady Dick too. That's actually the only good thing that came out of last year was Grady Dick. Seeing him overcome like one of the worst starts to a Raptors rookie season that I can remember, especially relative to his pick position at 13. But like the first 3 months of Grady, like when he got sent down to the G League, he was still struggling. Like I remember vividly asking Grady in a scrum after he got called up, like there were these ideas that like you had potentially changed your shot, because I think Sam Decker, who was like invited to Raptors training camp one year, obviously longtime NBA player and played at Wisconsin before that, but like he had mentioned that like, oh, the Raptors changed Grady's shot. So I remember asking him about it, like, did the Raptors change your shot? And he was like, no, man, like he learned how to shoot from his mom, who was a very celebrated college player, and he's kept it that way ever since. And my point was just like, he was struggling so much that we were asking him like, yo, did you change your shot? Like, is that why you've been so bad? To see him turning around mid-season like that and to finish the season strong, he was probably the only bright spot of last year for me. And the toughness that he showed, the fight, I think that's the one thing with Grady is like, he is a fighter like that. Like he's just mentally tough. Like, and he's just not afraid. And the start of the season that he had this year, which propelled him ultimately to get to the Rising Stars game, and he was so proud to be there. He was actually so proud he was happy to see media there, which is a rarity in the NBA when players are actually happy to see media. But like that toughness and that eye-opening ability of when he was changing games at the start of the year, when he was changing scouting reports, like, you know how much of an honor it is to get on a scouting report. That was huge for Grady. That's been really fun. And then this rookie class, I mean, right from the time the Raptors actually made those trades to sort of get extra picks, to draft day itself, where they were able to sort of get these guys in the door, and then to summer league when you get your first chance to look at them. Like, all it takes is watching like 2 minutes of Jamal Shedd's college tape, and not even on the offensive end, just on the defensive end, to be like, yeah, this guy's a Raptor. Like, he's got Raptor DNA all over him, right? Like whatever cloth that Kyle Lowry and Fred VanVleet were cut out of, like Jamal Shedd is like a cousin to that lineage, right? So I was already in on him. Mobo, I think that like he had a really breakout year last year playing at University of San Francisco. So he gets drafted. Certainly has the size, the tools to be a Raptors type of player. You also find out that he's childhood friends with Scottie Barnes dating back to like the 4th grade, which is just crazy, small world kind of moment. But it's been fun watching him. It's been fun watching Jamison Battle, who has gone from undrafted, barely known player at the collegiate level to getting an invite to training camp, getting an invite, winning that spot out of training camp, and then getting converted from a 2-way to a full-time contract. It's been really rewarding. He's basically on the same path that Chris Boucher was on way back in the day. Very different players, but still. And then, of course, like Jacoby, who obviously tore his shoulder, so he didn't play a lot, but then has come back in now and made his presence known. Always Shamshay, who has shown a lot of growth in the G League this year. Unfortunately, one of his teammates landed on his leg, so he's out for the rest of the season, but I don't think it's going to hold him out for too long. So hopefully we're able to see him in Summer League next year. Like, they brought a great energy. Like, even seeing like Brandon Ingram and how much he wants to come here. I know like it's basically free agency for him, so like the Raptors obviously gave him $120 million to be happy to come to Toronto, but like the fact that by all accounts there were multiple teams in for him and he decided I want to go to Toronto, that's the place I'd like to re-sign in. That's awesome to see, man. Even small things like that conga line that like, Garrett Temple before every game starts dancing, and Lindsey Dunn had actually talked to him about this story where Garrett does this dance before every game, and you have like 7 rookies now following behind him. It's just fun. The energy around this team is a lot more fun than last year, and a lot more fun than 2 years ago. So they're moving in the right directions. The wins haven't come yet, but I think if all goes right, the Raptors get the top pick this year, get Brandon Ingram healthy, and then we start to see something promising again. And if they have done that, then I think the front office has done a really good job of rebuilding a team in a pretty relatively short amount of time. So thanks to all of your questions. We've actually run quite long on this, so this is what it's been really fun. Okay, let's wrap up here and finish with your 3 stars from tonight's performance. Your first star is going to be going. Let's give it to Chris Boucher, man. Chris Boucher gets the chain, but 23 minutes, 10 rebounds, 2 assists, 9 of 12 shooting, 4 or 5 from 3, 20 minutes for Chris. What a legend, bro. This guy comes in as the 10th man and closes out the game, and he is a huge reason why the Raptors were able to win tonight. 23 points for Chris tonight. Second star, they got to IQ, 23 points, a game high plus 29, 6 rebounds, 8 assists, 2 steals, a block. He certainly likes this matchup against Phoenix. They don't have a lot of, just defensive players in general across the board, but especially not in the guard position. He was able to really spark that end of the game there where he knocked down 2 threes, and then he had 3 driving kick threes to RJ. But a really nice game for him, 30 minutes for him. And I think for IQ, just letting on some of that frustration, because this has been a frustrating season. He's had 3 separate injuries that were all kind of out of nowhere, and he hasn't been able to quote unquote live up to the contract. So there's obviously naturally doubt that comes with it. I mean, you sign a big deal, you come with a lot of expectations, but we also know that IQ is a quality player, and he showed that tonight. So that was really fun to see. And then your third star, RJ certainly played really well, and RJ could really get a lot of credit here. But actually, I'm gonna give it to Scottie Barnes. If I had 4 stars, RJ would definitely be the 4th star here. RJ did a great job on the offensive end. Thought he actually gave a lot of effort on the defensive end as well. But I just showed RJ a ton of love in the last episode. So let's give it to Scottie. Scottie, actually, my bad. He's actually the game high plus 31 here for Scottie. 20 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, a steal. More importantly, he had the job of guarding Kevin Durant. KD goes for 15 points on 5 of 15 shooting. Scottie also efficient from the field, 8 of 14 from the field, 2 of 3 from 3, knocked down 2 threes in the second half there, got to the mid-range a bunch, and more importantly, the defensive effort was really strong there for Scottie Barnes. Your Gerald Henderson Award winner for who randomly torched the Raps, that's got to go to Bradley Beal. I mean, damn, I thought Bradley Beal was playing like he still had Trevor Ariza on his team, with Marcin Gortat on his team, with John Wall running side by side with him, with like Drew Gooden coming off that bench. Who was he playing with? Otto Porter back in the day, like Paul Pierce. I hated that team, man. That team. It's one of the lowest moments as a Raptor fan was 2015. So, but Bradley Beal kicked it into 2015 mode. 30 points on 12 of 15 shooting. Shouts to, I mean, damn, man. 2 or 3 years ago, we were really talking about, like, should the Raptors trade for Bradley Beal? And I think a significant portion of people were like, yes, we should do it. So, yeah, it's been a long fall off for Bradley Beal since then, but at least he had a good game tonight. So thanks to everyone for tapping in here. I appreciate everybody for sticking through the early mic issues. Apologies, I had the wrong mic selected, but I appreciate the chat letting me know. Yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in. If you've enjoyed this, hit a like on the stream. Just hit subscribe to the YouTube channel. We'll be doing a lot of Raptors content for you pretty much always, but especially from now until the end of the year. We got a lot of really cool content banked. We got an interview with Chris that I was really happy with. One with Grady that I'm quite frankly wasn't as high on, but maybe you guys will like it. We got Ches Swirsky coming down the pipe. We got John Bitove Jr. coming down the pipe. And more importantly, we got a lot of post games, which hopefully we'll have Jerome and Alex for, because doing it by myself is actually quite difficult. So thanks everyone for listening. This has been the Hello and Welcome podcast presented by Betway. And yeah, we'll see you next week.